Just a quick update, the second channel is alive again. I've decided to revive the second channel as well as clean up the schedule for this one so I can get videos out more frequently on both. I just posted an analysis video on Doki Doki Literature Club's horror, so check it out after this video. Link will be at the end of the video, in the description, and probably in a pinned comment. Feel free to check it out. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Anime Theory, where it's been well over half a year since my last Death Note theory. I'm honestly suffering from withdrawals at this point, and it seems like you guys have been as well, considering the comments I've been getting. Now, I get quite a large number of requests to cover certain topics involving Death Note. Not really shocking, honestly, because I'm very quickly becoming known as the Death Note guy here on YouTube. Among these requests, however, one in particular is always mentioned, a hidden piece of Death Note lore that often gets overlooked by the majority of anime watchers. This hidden piece of lore also happens to contain one of the most interesting characters in the series, one that you might have only heard mentioned offhand once during the actual anime. Heck, before reading up on it myself, I wasn't aware of any of this, so I figured since I've gotten more requests than I'd ever expect to cover it, I think it's about time we talk about one of L's other cases. One involving one of the most terrifying villains in Death Note. One that you likely haven't heard of as well. It's time to go beyond. So yeah, Death Note has quite a bit of extra material. Beyond the original manga and anime, there exists live-action remakes, live-action sequels, bonus endings, games, light novels, and even a spiritual successor series. Now, not all of these are necessarily canon, as I doubt the Netflix film or the musical could exactly meld with the original material in all ways. Some of it, however, is canon, and the topic we're covering today even gets a mention directly in the anime itself. With a bit of digging, you might discover a short novel by the name of Death Note, Another Note, the Los Angeles BB murder cases. It's a story that takes place before the events of the main series, involving both L and Naomi, and it's narrated by our old pal Mello. Poor Mello, he gets more attention in this than he ever did in the main series. In the story, we see both Naomi and L's involvement in a case involving a short series of murders. L contacts Naomi to essentially investigate for him, to be his eyes and ears in the case. While she's initially hesitant, she obviously helps him because, who wouldn't help this adorable fella? This also marks her first interaction with L, which is how she knows him in the anime when she shows up later to attempt to foil Kira's plan. She goes to the scene of the first murder, where a victim by the name of Believe Bridesmaid? Alright, perfectly normal name. Every murder victim is murdered and mutilated in a different way by a criminal known as B. If the use of a letter sounds familiar, that's because it should. Much like Nier and Mello, B was one of the many people being trained to be like L at Whammy House. Unlike Mello, who merely wanted to challenge L, and Nier, who was just kinda Nier, B decided he wanted to challenge L in a different way. He was like, screw all this detective garbage, I'll beat him by becoming a criminal. Makes perfect sense to me. While beginning to investigate, however, Naomi meets with a man with some bizarre behaviors. He's constantly hunched over, investigates in a very odd way, has no real understanding of social interaction, constantly eats sweets and stuff with a ridiculous amount of sugar, and has bags under his eyes. Sounds familiar for some reason. Heck, he even calls himself Ryuzaki. Familiar, but I just can't put my finger on it. Anyways, the two begin solving puzzles that eventually lead them to the scene of the next murder. This starts off simple enough with a really difficult crossword puzzle that the killer sent, but by the end it becomes this endless cascade of bizarre number combinations, hidden messages involving the victims' bodies, and some guesswork that honestly sounds like a bunch of malarkey at times. The two continue solving these mysteries together in an attempt to thwart the killer B, but Ryuzaki is still very mysterious about his identity. No one can seem to identify who he really is, but he's allowed to aid in the investigation because he's proving to be a great help. He might be socially inept, but he sure is smart. Jeez, who's this reminding me of? Ugh. The two finally manage to track down the next place that B plans to target for his gruesome murders. The two head to an apartment to pose as two potential victims that are likely to be targeted by B. Just as the story gets to its conclusion, Naomi finds the killer, who turns out to be none other than Ryuzaki himself, who was actually B the whole time. Yeah, you guys thought I was talking about L this whole time, huh? Well, the story also makes it out to be L for quite a while before it suddenly reveals B's plot. His intention was to leave L with an unsolvable crime, a crime that would force L to hunt down a now non-existent B. That was how B intended to beat L, but he was caught in the act of trying to kill himself, so he pretty much got screwed. B, or rather BB I guess, is actually known as Beyond Birthday. Brilliant name. It's revealed that while Mello and Nier intended to face L head-on, BB decided that the best way to become better than L would be to become a criminal that L wasn't able to beat. Certainly not the easiest way to go about it, considering L's skills as a detective, but whatever, man, you do you. Now, one may then wonder, where exactly did he get this want to kill from? The story outlines that in each murder, BB decides to horribly mutilate the bodies. There's something more here than just wanting to beat L. Well, there is a very clear-cut reason as to why he ended up this way, why he became a psychopath, and it's something that brings up some very odd questions about the anime. You see, from birth, BB apparently had the Shinigami eyes. He was able to see the name and lifespan of all of those around him. He never made a deal with a Shinigami or anything. Heck, he never even came into contact with a Shinigami. He simply has the eyes. I'd imagine something like that, knowing when every person you know and love is going to die, would have quite the negative effect on him. And think about it, who else can even tell him what this ability is? No one is aware of the Shinigami eyes, and likely thought he was just crazy. All this stuff likely added up to make him the crazy antagonist he is in the story. Beyond Birthday's story is certainly interesting, considering that not only is it canon to Death Note overall, but that it's hidden in some side material, locked away in a book that most anime watchers and even manga readers will probably never read. And while that story was great and all, you must be wondering what it all means. I mean, how could BB have the Shinigami eyes? What does it mean for the story of Death Note? Why would the author specifically choose to highlight this? Well, the answers to all of those questions will be revealed in another theory. Hey, I gotta save something for Death Note month, don't I? Which, by the way, is happening this year in June again, so get hyped. I guess I'll see you then. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, why not give a like or subscribe and then click the bell, since apparently subscriptions don't matter anymore in terms of YouTube. And hey, check out my video on Doki Doki Literature Club's horror that I posted on my second channel. Anyways, I'll be back in a couple days actually with a special video. I hope you enjoy it. See you then.